I chose to do my lesson over the entrepreneurship where they had to develop their business plan. I liked this lesson and I felt like it was a quality lesson because of the different aspects that came together, not only with them working individually, but the pair share. I mean, yeah, when you shared with your partner, when you got a group and had to have knowledgeable conversation to develop a business plan. So I liked all of that and I do think it was very valuable. So to answer the questions that you asked us about these lessons, after I evaluated it, they were very easy for me to answer. So the first question that you asked was if the lesson plan contained a writing component, and it did contain a writing component. So when they got together as a group, they had to Okay, well, first for the writing component, they had to make a cluster chart of all the definitions. So without the definitions, they wouldn't have enough knowledge to be able to do the next part, which is actually the business plan. So that was a writing component. And I do feel like that was writing like a mathematician and thinking like a mathematician because they're never through learning. There are definitions they have to learn because without those definitions, they're not able to accomplish the task at hand. So I do feel like number one was a writing component that was thinking like a mathematician. But then when you got into your group, so the groups got together and they had to make a business plan. And it wasn't just like they got to be creative. They had to look up laws. They had to use the right definitions. They had to present to a panel of judges. It was very valuable information. It wasn't just a thrown together lesson plan. So they had to write their business plan. So before they could go before the panel of judges. So that was thinking like a mathematician because when you are in entrepreneurship, you can't just say, hey, I've got this idea. For an example, Shark Tank. They have to know what they want the people to invest in their company, what the return rate's going to be. So you have to think in that mindset. You can't just say, hey, I created this and I want it to work. So I love that it was teaching those students those different steps. So the second question was if it required them to interact as an intellectual community, which was true. So anytime that you get different people together, so if I and my best friend wanted to do a business plan, if we had come up with something, an entrepreneurship idea, and we had to do a business plan, her ideas are always going to be different than my ideas, but we have to come together to make one idea as a whole. And that's what interacting as an intellectual community is. So these groups of students that the teacher would have paired together, they had to come together. They had to think of the idea. They had to X some people's ideas out, say, yeah, that's great. No, that's got to go. I do think that is so important because that's how it happens in the real world. They might take part of your ideas, but not take all of your ideas. And it's so important for them to know it. Then yes, they had to share their ideas inside that discipline. So when they looked up the different laws or they looked up if it was feasible, there were so many things that they had to look up. Product labeling, what goes into that. So they have to think in their discipline in that way. They have to interact in their discipline that way. They had to write in their discipline, writing the business plan. The next question was if it included a project-based activity. Absolutely. The business plan that they're having to come together and then present in front of a panel of judges, that's such a project base. So their project and their problem was that they have this prototype of something that they think would be very valuable to the world. That was their problem. So their next step is that the solution would be to make it where it's available to everyone. So that's what they're doing when they're researching existing laws, they're researching industries, they're researching patents, they're doing the labeling, they're presenting in front of the panel of judges, they're getting voted on. So that is such a project-based activity. There are so many steps that goes into them completing this project, and the problem literally is that they think that this is going to be valuable to everybody, and the solution is, okay, what can we do? How can we make this the best so that we're the ones that are voted on? And then the ultimate evaluation was did this lesson require the students to think like a mathematician? I think the biggest issue is that when people think of mathematicians, they think of equations and they think of doing square roots or long division, or that's not the only thing that goes into mathematicians. There are people who we work with every day. There are companies that we go in every day that have to think like a mathematician. Granted, there are people above them that do most of that work, but yes, they're thinking like a mathematician. it is a fun project. I would have loved to do this project as a kid, but it's not just, hey, I think that I should invent this slime because it does this. No, it's, okay, what is the problem I see in my community? What product could I make to fix this solution? What are the steps? Is there that already exists? Is there a law that prevents me from making this? What is the labeling? What is my investment? What is my return rate? It's so thinking like a mathematician. Yes, they're going to have fun. This is a very fun project, but there are so many steps that go into it that thinking like a mathematician is all you're doing. When you present to the panel of judges, you can't just say, it's a good idea, it's fun, and I can see you using it. You have to give them the facts. You have to tell them why they want it, and what they're going to get out of it if they invest with you, or so on and so forth. And I think that covers when I ask if you have to use a specific set of behaviors. Like I just said, when you present, you can't just say, hey, it's great, I love it. You're going to love it too. You have to have the different facts that go on with it. The summary of my evaluation, if it was a quality lesson plan, absolutely. It was fun. It was interactive. It's something that kids have a voice on. They get to see a problem. They get to fix it. But with that being said, it's also something where they're learning terminology. They're learning how to look up those laws, so they're learning research skills. They're learning how to write like a mathematician, so you're using writing. They're learning if things have already existed, so they're using history. I think it's such a good lesson. I actually looked at every single one of them, and this one just kept pulling me there. So I do think that it's a quality lesson plan. I actually would love to use it myself one day. So I hope that that makes sense. I absolutely 100%, my evaluation of this lesson is I had to think like a mathematician. Thanks.